You have always been good at staying. While other people left, for better cities, better jobs, better versions of their lives, you stayed. You stayed when the neighborhood got worse. You stayed when the university got too expensive and you had to choose between tuition and your brother's medication. You stayed because leaving felt like an admission that the people you loved were not worth staying for. That quality, the stubbornness of it, the quiet refusal to abandon a thing just because it got hard, is either your greatest virtue or the reason you are sitting on a kitchen chair at 3 a.m. with a knife in your hand and your family locked in the basement below your feet. You haven't decided which yet. The outbreak reached your city on a Tuesday. You remember the day precisely because you were supposed to have a job interview that morning, a medical supply company, entry-level logistics, nothing glamorous, but steady money and health benefits that would finally cover Nico's prescriptions without you having to calculate which bills to delay each month. You had ironed your shirt the night before. You had set 2 alarms. The interview was canceled by email at 6:47 a.m. No explanation, just, "We regret to inform you that today's sessions have been postponed." You found out why when you looked at your phone and saw that every person you followed online had posted the same thing in different words. Something was happening at the hospital on the east side, then 2 hospitals. Then the phrase people kept using, mass casualty event, was replaced by something no one had a clinical term for yet, and the posts stopped being informative and started being just noise, just fear typed fast by people who didn't know what else to do with their hands. By noon, the city was a different place. By midnight, it was unrecognizable. Your mother was in the kitchen when it happened to her. You had been watching the street from the second-floor window for 6 hours, tracking the sounds, distant at first, then closer, then the specific quality of silence that falls after something terrible and before the next terrible thing. Nico was asleep on the couch behind you, his inhaler on the cushion beside his hand the way it always was, like a small companion. Mara was on the phone with her sister on the other side of the city, her voice getting quieter as the call went on, until she wasn't speaking anymore, just listening. And then the call ended, and she sat very still and didn't tell you what her sister had said. You heard your mother drop something in the kitchen. A glass, you thought, or a pan. You almost didn't go down. You almost stayed at the window. When you came into the kitchen, she was on the floor, and for one terrible second you thought heart attack. You thought stroke. You ran to her and turned her over and saw her face and understood that it was neither of those things. There was a wound on her neck, a bite, already darkening at the edges, that she hadn't mentioned, that she had apparently been hiding since she came home from the pharmacy 3 hours ago, that she had apparently decided to say nothing about because she didn't want to worry you. She looked up at you from the kitchen floor with complete clarity and said your name. Then she said she was sorry. Then the clarity went away and something else came into her eyes. Something that looked like your mother the way a photograph looks like a person. Recognizable in every detail, present in none of them. And she stopped being able to speak in words. You held her there on the kitchen floor for a long time, even after you knew you shouldn't. Nico turned 4 hours later. You don't know exactly how it reached him. The wound on your mother, the contact before you understood what was happening, the air in the house. A logic you couldn't trace and spent days trying to reconstruct, before you finally accepted that the how didn't matter anymore, only the what. What happened was this. Your brother woke from the couch with a sound you had never heard him make, a sound that had no human category. and you were across the room before you knew you had moved, and you caught him before he reached Mara, and getting him down the basement stairs was the hardest physical thing you have ever done, because Nico, who you have carried through every asthma attack since he was 6 years old, who you have held upright in emergency rooms at 2 in the morning while he fought for breath, Nico did not feel like your brother anymore. He felt like something wearing your brother. Mara helped you. She didn't hesitate, didn't argue, didn't break down. She just helped you, her hands steady, her face the color of chalk. When it was done, and the basement door was latched, she sat down on the bottom stair and pressed her palms flat against the wood floor and breathed. You sat beside her. The sounds from below were rhythmic and terrible, and you both listened to them without speaking. She turned 6 hours after that. You were holding her hand when it happened. You felt the exact moment, a tremor through her fingers, a change in the pressure of her grip, and then the grip becoming something other than a grip, becoming a clench, and you let go and stepped back and said her name once, and she didn't answer to it. Getting her to the basement was easier the second time. Not because it was less terrible, because you already knew how. That was 7 days ago. You have not slept for more than 2 hours at a stretch since. You have not left the house. You have eaten whatever was already in the kitchen, methodically, without appetite, the way you would fuel a machine. And you have boiled water on the gas stove because you read somewhere that the municipal water supply should be assumed compromised. And you have sat on this chair with this knife and listened to the sounds from below and thought about the same problem from every angle you can reach. The problem is this: every piece of information you can find on your phone, on the handful of websites still functioning, in the fragments of broadcasts that reach you through the small battery radio on the kitchen counter, treats the infected as a terminal condition. The language is consistent across every source: the infected, the turned, the lost. Vocabulary that forecloses the question before it's asked. Vocabulary that assumes the person inside is already gone, that what remains is a body running on corrupted instructions, that the only rational response is distance, and eventually the kind of finality that nobody is saying out loud yet, but that you can feel gathering at the edges of every broadcast like weather. You do not accept this vocabulary. You are not operating on sentimentality. You are operating on something you remember from the 1 year of medical school you completed before the money ran out. A lecture on prion diseases and neurological hijacking. A professor who spent 40 minutes explaining that the brain, under certain conditions of chemical or biological interference, can be functionally inaccessible without being structurally destroyed. That a locked room is not an empty room. That inaccessible is not the same word as gone. You are probably wrong. You know you are probably wrong. The probability that a person with 1 year of incomplete medical education, no laboratory equipment, no research access, and 3 infected family members chained to support beams in a residential basement can develop a viable treatment for a pathogen that has overwhelmed every professional medical institution in the city within 72 hours? That probability is not something you want to calculate honestly. But the alternative is to leave, and you have always been good at staying. The bike locks were Nico's. He had 3 of them, serious ones, the kind serious cyclists use, with braided steel cables as thick as your thumb. He was protective of his bicycle in a way that had always made you smile, given that the bicycle cost $40 at a garage sale and had a wobble in the front wheel that no amount of adjustment ever fully corrected. He locked it to the drain pipe outside every night with all 3 locks, overlapping them in a pattern he had designed himself, because he said 1 lock was an invitation and 3 locks were a statement. You used all three on the support beams in the basement. Your mother is in the far corner by the water heater. She moves very little, mostly stands, sometimes sits against the wall with her knees drawn up, occasionally turns her head toward the stairs when she hears you moving above. Nico is closer to the center, and he is the most restless, pacing in the radius his cable allows, his inhaler, which you placed carefully on the shelf above the stairs the first night, out of reach, a strange, private ritual, sitting blue and small in the dark above him. Mara stands facing the wall near the window well. She has faced the wall since the second day. You don't know what she sees there, or whether she sees anything at all. You talk to them. Not constantly, not desperately. Quietly, the way you'd talk to someone sleeping, not expecting a response, but needing to speak the words anyway. You tell your mother the gas is still on, and the stove works, and you found 2 more cans of soup in the back of the pantry. You tell Nico his bicycle is fine, still locked to the drain pipe. The wobble in the front wheel is exactly as bad as it always was. You tell Mara about the radio, what you've heard, what you're piecing together, what the city sounds like now from the upstairs window. None of them answer. But 3 nights ago, when you were sitting on the stairs talking to the dark below, your mother turned her head toward your voice and held it there for a long time. Not toward the sound of you, toward your voice specifically, toward the particular frequency of the person she has known for your entire life. You are not operating on sentimentality, but you wrote that down. On the 7th day, you leave the house for the first time. Not because you want to, because the medication situation has become a problem you cannot think your way around. There is a pharmacy 2 blocks east, small, independent, the kind of place where the owner knew everyone's prescriptions by memory. You need specific things, sedatives, if any remain, to reduce the physical stress on your family's systems. Broad-spectrum antiparasitic compounds that preliminary internet research, conducted in fragments on a dying phone battery, suggests may interact with the infection pathway in ways worth testing. And anything with an acetylcholine mechanism, a word you have been turning over for days like a key you're not sure fits any lock you have access to. The street outside your front door looks like a street that has been interrupted mid-sentence. Cars stopped at angles. A bicycle on its side. Personal objects. A shoe, a child's backpack, a laptop case. Lying in the road with the particular stillness of things dropped by people who were running. The sky is the same sky. That seems wrong somehow. It should look different. You move fast and stay close to the buildings. The pharmacy has been looted, but incompletely. Whoever came through took the obvious things, the painkillers and the bandages, and left the specific things, the compounds without obvious recreational or emergency value. You fill your bag in 4 minutes with your hands shaking and your ears cataloging every sound from the street outside. You find what you came for, and you find something you did not come for. Inside the medicine cabinet, behind the dispensing counter, behind a row of untouched antihistamines on the shelf where the pharmacist apparently kept personal items alongside the stock, there is a note. Handwritten on the back of a prescription pad, folded once, taped to the shelf with 2 strips of medical tape. It has been there long enough for the edges to have lifted slightly, but not long enough to have been there before the outbreak. Someone left it deliberately for someone they believed would come looking. You unfold it. The handwriting is precise and unhurried, the handwriting of someone accustomed to taking notes under pressure. Infection is neural, not viral. Primary mechanism: acetylcholine pathway disruption. Reversal is theoretically possible in the intermediate state. Research ongoing.
Lab 4, Harmon University, basement level. Do not come alone. Do not come at night. Dr. V. You read it 3 times. Then you fold it carefully, put it in your breast pocket next to Nico's inhaler, and walk back to your house through the interrupted street with your bag over your shoulder and something new in your chest. Not quite hope, because hope feels dangerous, and you cannot afford to be careless, but the specific feeling of a locked room that has just, from somewhere inside, been knocked on. You go back down to the basement. You sit on the stairs. You tell them about the note. Your mother turns her head toward your voice,